Welcome back to the channel, US Rare Coins News, Top 1 Coin Collectors, History Lovers, and Hidden Treasure Hunters. Today we're traveling back to the heart of the Great Depression era to explore one of the most fascinating and widely collected US coins of all time, the United States of America 1-cent Lincoln Wheat penny from 1936. This small copper coin may look simple, but it carries powerful history, classic design, and serious collector interest. Make sure you stay with me until the very end, because the auction value of certain 1936 Lincoln pennies can be far more impressive than most people expect. The year 1936 sits at a unique point in American history. The nation was slowly recovering from the Great Depression, industries were rebuilding, and everyday coins like the Lincoln cent played a crucial role in daily life. Pennies were used constantly, for food, transportation, newspapers, and small essentials. Because of this heavy circulation, most 1936 pennies show wear today, which makes high-quality examples especially desirable among collectors. The Lincoln cent series itself is legendary. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it became the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical person rather than a symbolic figure. By 1936, the Lincoln cent design was already deeply familiar to Americans, representing honesty, unity, and perseverance during difficult times. On the front of the 1936 Lincoln penny, you'll find a strong and dignified portrait of Abraham Lincoln. His expression is calm yet determined, reflecting leadership and moral strength. The details in Lincoln's hair, coat, and facial features are especially important to collectors. Coins with sharp detail and minimal wear stand out dramatically from heavily circulated examples. The date 1936 is clearly visible beneath Lincoln's portrait, anchoring the coin firmly in this important historical period. Turning the coin over, we see the classic wheat reverse design. Two wheat stalks frame the words, 1 cent, symbolizing America's agricultural strength and economic foundation. This design, used from 1909 to 1958, is one of the most beloved in U.S. coin history. The simplicity of the wheat ears combined with their symbolic meaning gives the coin a timeless appeal that collectors never seem to tire of. What truly makes the 1936 Lincoln penny interesting is its balance between availability and rarity. While many were produced, the vast majority were heavily circulated. Over time, copper pennies develop wear, discoloration, and surface damage. Finding a 1936 penny with full detail, original color, and clean surfaces is far more difficult than many people realize. Condition plays a massive role in determining value. A worn penny with smooth details may be common, but a well-preserved example with sharp wheat lines, strong lettering, and original luster becomes something special. Collectors carefully examine surface quality, strike strength, and overall eye appeal when evaluating this coin. Minting variations also add excitement. Some 1936 Lincoln pennies were struck more sharply than others, while certain examples may show minor die variations, weak strikes, or subtle minting quirks. These small differences can greatly affect desirability, especially when combined with high condition. Collectors love coins that stand out from the average example. Another important factor is preservation. Pennies that were saved early, perhaps tucked away in jars, albums, or rolls, often survived in much better shape. These coins avoided decades of wear and exposure, making them far more attractive today. As time passes, the number of high-quality survivors continues to shrink, increasing competition among collectors. Professional grading can elevate the status of a 1936 Lincoln penny even further. When a coin is authenticated and graded in high mint state condition, it becomes a premium collectible. Grading confirms originality, condition, and authenticity, which gives buyers confidence and often leads to strong bidding when such coins appear on the market. The appeal of the 1936 Lincoln penny isn't just about money, it's about connection. This coin passed through the hands of Americans during one of the most challenging periods in U.S. history. It represents resilience, everyday life, and the enduring strength of the nation. Holding one feels like holding a small piece of the past. So what is the 1936 Lincoln Wheat penny actually worth? In average circulated condition, it's modest. But when condition improves, value rises quickly. At auction, well-preserved examples and high-grade certified 1936 Lincoln pennies have sold for hundreds of dollars, while exceptional mint state specimens with outstanding eye appeal have reached several $1,000s, depending on condition, rarity, and collector demand. Top 2. Today, we're uncovering the story of one such coin, the 1940s Lincoln wheat penny, a humble 1-cent piece that carries decades of American history, mystery, and surprising value. The year 1940 was a tense and unforgettable time in the United States. The world was on the brink of global conflict, and while America had not yet entered World War II, the signs were everywhere. Factories were preparing, industries were shifting, and everyday life was filled with uncertainty and anticipation. In the middle of this moment in history, the United States Mint continued producing coins that Americans used daily, never imagining that some would one day become prized collectibles. The Lincoln wheat penny had already been in circulation for over 3 decades by 1940. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure. By 1940, the design was deeply familiar to Americans, yet it still carried powerful symbolism. Lincoln's portrait represented unity, resilience, and leadership, qualities the nation would soon need more than ever. The 1940s wheat penny was struck at the San Francisco Mint, identified by the small S mint mark beneath the date. Coins from San Francisco often show different characteristics compared to those from Philadelphia or Denver, and collectors pay close attention to strike quality, surface texture, and overall detail. While millions were produced, the reality is that most entered circulation immediately, passing through countless hands during a period when coins were heavily used and rarely saved. The coin itself is made of 95% copper, giving it that warm reddish-brown color collectors love. On the front, Lincoln's calm and thoughtful expression seems almost timeless, while the reverse features 2 wheat stalks framing the words, 1 cent. This wheat design symbolized prosperity and growth, values that were especially meaningful during uncertain times. What truly separates an ordinary 1940s wheat penny from a valuable one is condition. Coins that circulated for years often lost sharp details, developed scratches, or darkened unevenly. However, a small number survived in exceptional condition, protected from wear, moisture, and mishandling. These well-preserved examples are where collector interest becomes intense. Collectors examine every detail closely: the sharpness of Lincoln's coat, the clarity of the wheat lines, the smoothness of the fields, and even the original mint luster. Coins that still retain their original red copper color are especially desirable, as copper naturally darkens over time. A bright red 1940s penny is far rarer than most people realize. Another factor that increases value is strike quality. Some 1940s pennies were weakly struck, while others display crisp, bold details. Well-struck examples stand out dramatically when compared side by side. Small differences that most people overlook can make a massive difference in the collector market. Then there's the possibility of minting irregularities. While not common, certain pennies from this era show subtle die variations, repunched mint marks, or minor production anomalies. These features add another layer of excitement for advanced collectors who specialize in varieties and errors. What makes this coin especially fascinating is that it was never meant to be rare. It was everyday money, used for newspapers, candy, bus fares, and groceries. Yet time has a way of changing everything. As decades passed, coins were lost, damaged, melted, or forgotten, and only a small percentage survived in top condition. Today, the 1940s Lincoln wheat penny represents more than just a cent. It's a connection to pre-war America, to a time when the nation stood on the edge of history. Holding one feels like holding a quiet witness to the past, something that traveled through one of the most important eras of the 20th century. Collectors around the world continue searching through old jars, inherited collections, and estate finds, hoping to discover one of these pennies in exceptional condition. And while many examples are modestly valued, the finest survivors tell a very different story. Now, let's talk numbers, but only where it truly matters. At major coin auctions, top-grade 1940s Lincoln wheat pennies in near-perfect mint condition have sold for prices ranging from several $1,000s to over $10,000. With elite red designation examples achieving the highest auction results ever recorded for this date. It's incredible to think that a single cent, once barely noticed, could one day command such attention and value. Top 3, today, that story belongs to the 1946 Lincoln Wheat Penny, a 1-cent coin minted at a moment when the United States was stepping out of war and into a brand new era. The year 1946 was unlike any other. World War II had just ended, and America was adjusting to peace after years of sacrifice, rationing, and uncertainty. Soldiers were returning home, factories were shifting from wartime production to consumer goods, and the country was filled with hope mixed with exhaustion. In the middle of this massive transition, the U.S. Mint quietly produced millions of Lincoln Wheat pennies that would pass through the hands of everyday Americans rebuilding their lives. By 1946, the Lincoln Wheat penny design had already become a familiar symbol of American currency. Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the front represented unity, leadership, and perseverance, values deeply felt by a nation recovering from global conflict. The reverse, featuring 2 wheat stalks framing the words, 1 cent, symbolized growth and abundance, reflecting the optimism of a country looking forward to prosperity. The 1946 wheat penny was struck at 3 different mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each version carries its own subtle characteristics, and collectors carefully examine mint marks, strike quality, and surface detail to determine desirability. While large quantities were produced, most of these coins entered heavy circulation during a time when coins were used constantly and rarely saved. These pennies were made from a copper-based alloy, restoring the traditional composition after the wartime steel cents of 1943 and the experimental changes that followed. The return to copper gave the 1946 penny its familiar reddish tone, which collectors today pay close attention to. Original color plays a major role in determining value, as copper naturally darkens over time. What truly separates a common 1946 penny from a valuable one is condition. Many examples show heavy wear, dull surfaces, and weakened details after decades of use. However, a small percentage survived with sharp details, clean fields, and even traces of original mint luster. These higher-grade coins are where collector interest begins to rise dramatically. Collectors study every detail, the sharpness of Lincoln's hair, the clarity of the wheat stalk lines, the smoothness of the coin's fields, and the presence of original color. Coins classified as red or red-brown are especially desirable, as fully red examples are extremely difficult to find more than 70 years after minting. Strike quality is another key factor. Some 1946 pennies were struck more weakly than others, resulting in softer details. Coins with strong, crisp strikes stand out immediately and often command higher premiums. Even small differences in detail can mean a significant change in value. There is also the exciting possibility of minting anomalies. While not common, certain 1946 wheat pennies exhibit die cracks, repunched mint marks, or minor production irregularities. These unusual traits are highly attractive to collectors who specialize in varieties and errors, adding an extra layer of intrigue to the coin. What makes the 1946 Lincoln Wheat penny so fascinating is that it represents a fresh start. It was one of the first regular-issue pennies minted after the war, quietly entering circulation as Americans began new lives, started families, and rebuilt the economy. This historical context gives the coin emotional significance beyond its metal and design. Over the decades, countless 1946 pennies were lost, damaged, or simply spent without a second thought. Only a small number were set aside by collectors or preserved by chance. Today, those surviving high-grade examples are prized not only for their condition but for the story they tell. Collectors continue searching through old collections, inherited coin jars, and forgotten drawers, hoping to uncover a pristine 1946 wheat penny. While many examples remain modest in value, the finest survivors have proven that even a single cent can become a serious collectible. Now, at the very top of the market, auction results tell the real story. At major coin auctions, exceptional 1946 Lincoln Wheat pennies in top mint state condition, especially those with strong strikes and original red color, have sold for prices ranging from several $1,000s to well over $10,000, depending on grade, mint mark, and rarity. It's a powerful reminder that history doesn't always live in museums. Sometimes, it rests quietly in the palm of your hand, waiting to be discovered. Top 4, every day, millions of Americans used Lincoln wheat pennies for groceries, newspapers, and streetcar rides, unaware that some of these coins would one day be closely examined by collectors around the world. The Lincoln wheat penny design had become a familiar symbol of American currency by this time. Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the front stood as a reminder of unity and leadership, while the reverse design of 2 wheat ears framed the words, 1 cent, symbolizing productivity and national growth. Though the design was nearing the end of its run, it still carried the weight of tradition and history. The 1950 D wheat penny was minted in Denver, indicated by the small D mint mark beneath the date. Coins from the Denver Mint during this period are especially interesting to collectors because of variations in strike strength and surface quality. While millions were produced, most were immediately placed into heavy circulation during a time when coins were rarely saved and constantly handled. These pennies were struck in a copper alloy, giving them a warm tone that has changed over the decades. Many examples today appear dark brown or unevenly toned due to natural oxidation and wear. Coins that manage to retain their original reddish color are far scarcer than people expect and immediately stand out to experienced collectors. Condition is the single most important factor when determining the value of a 1950 D wheat penny. The majority show clear signs of circulation, soft details, worn wheat lines, and flattened lettering. However, a very small number survived in outstanding condition, with sharp features, smooth fields, and traces of original mint luster. These are the coins that draw serious attention. Collectors study these pennies closely, examining Lincoln's hair, coat, and facial features, along with the clarity of the wheat stalks on the reverse. Strongly struck examples with clean surfaces are much harder to find than average circulated coins. Even subtle differences in strike quality can make a dramatic difference in collector demand. Another exciting aspect of the 1950 D wheat penny is the possibility of minting irregularities. Some examples show die cracks, die chips, or minor production anomalies that occurred during high-speed minting. While not common, these features can elevate a coin from ordinary to highly collectible, especially when combined with high-grade preservation. What makes the 1950 D penny especially fascinating is its place in history. It was produced during the final years of the wheat penny era, just before the design changed in 1959 to the Lincoln Memorial reverse. In many ways, the 1950 D coin represents the closing chapter of a classic American design that had been in circulation for half a century. Over time, countless examples were lost, spent, or damaged, while only a small percentage were set aside by collectors or preserved by chance. Today, those surviving high-grade examples are increasingly difficult to locate, which has pushed collector interest steadily upward. Modern collectors search through old collections, inherited jars, and estate holdings, hoping to find a 1950 D wheat penny that escaped decades of wear. While most examples remain affordable, the finest survivors tell a very different story, one that proves rarity is often created by time, not intention. Now, when it comes to the highest levels of value, auction records provide the clearest picture. At major numismatic auctions, exceptional 1950 D Lincoln wheat pennies in top mint state condition, particularly those with strong strikes and original red color, have sold for prices ranging from several $1,000s to over $10,000. Depending on grade, eye appeal, and rarity. Top 5. Today, a single penny can feel almost meaningless today. It slips through our fingers, rattles in drawers, and is often ignored completely. But there was a time when a penny mattered, and there are moments when that same penny becomes a powerful connection to American history. The 1952 D Lincoln wheat penny is one of those moments, a small copper coin that quietly reflects an era of confidence, growth, and transformation in the United States. The early 1950s marked a turning point for America. The nation had survived the Great Depression, endured World War II, and emerged as a global powerhouse. By 1952, factories were booming, highways were expanding, and everyday life was changing rapidly. Television sets were entering homes, suburban neighborhoods were spreading, and optimism filled the air. In the middle of this progress, the U.S. Mint continued striking the familiar Lincoln wheat penny, a design Americans had trusted for more than 40 years. The 1952 wheat penny continued the classic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a symbol of unity and perseverance. His calm, steady expression on the coin mirrored a nation that felt secure in its future. On the reverse, the twin wheat stalks framed the denomination, representing abundance, productivity, and growth, ideas that perfectly matched the spirit of post-war America. The D mint mark beneath the date tells us this penny was produced at the Denver Mint. Coins from Denver during this era are especially interesting because production was high, yet quality could vary from batch to batch. While millions of 1952 D pennies were minted, almost all were placed directly into circulation, where they were used heavily and rarely preserved. These coins were struck in a copper alloy, giving them a warm reddish tone when new. Over the decades, exposure to air, moisture, and constant handling caused most examples to darken into brown or uneven shades. Coins that manage to retain their original color are far more elusive than people realize, and they instantly stand out to experienced collectors. Condition plays a defining role in the value of a 1952 D wheat penny. The vast majority show wear, flattened wheat lines, softened lettering, and loss of detail in Lincoln's hair and coat. Truly sharp examples with clean surfaces and visible mint luster are much harder to find and represent only a tiny fraction of what was originally produced. Collectors carefully examine every feature. The strength of the strike, the clarity of the wheat stalks, the smoothness of the fields, and the presence of original copper color all influence desirability. Even minor differences that seem insignificant to the untrained eye can dramatically affect collector interest and value. Another layer of intrigue comes from minting characteristics. Some 1952 D pennies display stronger strikes, while others show softer details due to worn dies or high production speeds. Occasionally, collectors encounter subtle die cracks, die chips, or other production irregularities. While not common, these features can add uniqueness and make certain coins far more appealing. What makes the 1952 D Lincoln wheat penny especially meaningful is its place near the end of an era. Just a few years later, the wheat penny design would be retired in favor of the Lincoln Memorial reverse. This gives the 1952 D coin a sense of quiet finality, representing the closing years of one of America's most iconic coin designs. At the time, no one thought to save these pennies. They bought bread, newspapers, and stamps. Children dropped them in lunch money jars. Adults spent them without a second thought. As years passed, many were lost, damaged, or melted, leaving only a small population of well-preserved survivors. Today, collectors search through old collections, estate finds, and forgotten coin rolls hoping to uncover a high-grade 1952 D wheat penny. While most examples are modestly valued, the finest coins reveal just how dramatically condition can transform worth. Now, when we look at the top of the market, auction records tell the real story. At major numismatic auctions, exceptional 1952 D Lincoln wheat pennies in high mint state grades, especially those with strong strikes and original red color, have sold for prices ranging from several $1,000s to over $10,000, depending on grade, eye appeal, and rarity. Top 7. Some coins don't demand attention. They don't shine, they don't sparkle, and they don't feel important at first glance. Yet history often hides inside the most ordinary objects. The 1954 D Lincoln wheat penny is one of those quiet survivors, a small copper coin that passed through everyday American life during a decade defined by growth, confidence, and transformation. In 1954, the United States was firmly stepping into its post-war identity. The economy was strong, factories were busy, and suburban neighborhoods were spreading across the country. Families were settling into new routines, cars filled newly built highways, and the idea of the American dream felt closer than ever for millions of people. In the background of all this progress, the U.S. Mint continued producing Lincoln wheat pennies that moved silently through the nation's hands. By this time, the Lincoln wheat penny had already earned its place as a familiar and trusted part of American currency. The portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front symbolized leadership, unity, and resilience, qualities that still resonated deeply with Americans less than a decade after World War II. The reverse design, with its two wheat stalks, represented abundance and productivity, reflecting the optimism of the era. The 1954 D wheat penny was struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small d beneath the date. Denver Mint coins from the 1950s are especially interesting to collectors because production levels were high, yet strike quality could vary significantly. While millions of these pennies were produced, Almost all entered immediate circulation and were used heavily in daily transactions. These pennies were made from a copper alloy that originally gave them a bright reddish glow. Over time, natural oxidation and constant handling caused most examples to darken into brown or uneven tones. Coins that retained even traces of their original red color are far scarcer than most people realize and are highly sought after by collectors today. Condition is the key factor that determines whether a 1954 wheat penny is common or exceptional. The vast majority show noticeable wear, flattened wheat lines, softened lettering, and reduced detail in Lincoln's hair and coat. High-grade examples with sharp features, clean fields, and visible mint luster are surprisingly difficult to locate. Collectors examine these coins carefully, paying attention to strike strength, surface quality, and overall eye appeal. Strongly struck examples stand out immediately, especially when compared to weaker strikes from the same year. Even small differences in detail can dramatically affect desirability and value. Another layer of intrigue comes from minting characteristics. Some 1954 pennies display die cracks, die chips, or other subtle production irregularities caused by worn dies and high-speed minting. While these features are not widespread, they add individuality to certain coins and can make them far more appealing to specialized collectors. What makes the 1954 Lincoln wheat penny particularly fascinating is its place near the end of a historic design. Just 5 years later, the wheat reverse would be replaced by the Lincoln Memorial design, closing the chapter on a coin style that had been part of American life since 1909. This gives the 1954 penny a sense of quiet significance as part of the final generation of wheat pennies. At the time, no one thought to save these coins. They were used to buy stamps, candy, and newspapers. Children carried them in their pockets, and adults spent them without hesitation. As decades passed, many were lost, damaged, or simply forgotten, leaving only a small number preserved in outstanding condition. Today, collectors search through old collections, inherited jars, and estate finds hoping to uncover a 1954 wheat penny that escaped heavy circulation. While most examples remain modestly valued, the finest survivors reveal just how dramatically condition can transform a coin's worth. When we look at the highest levels of the market, auction records tell the final chapter of this story. At major numismatic auctions, exceptional 1954 Lincoln wheat pennies in top mint state condition, especially those with strong strikes and original red color, have sold for prices ranging from several $1,000s to well over $10,000, depending on grade, eye appeal, and rarity. It's remarkable to think that a single cent, once passed casually from hand to hand, could one day command such attention. The 1954 Lincoln wheat penny proves that even the quietest pieces of history can grow into something extraordinary when time and preservation come together.